So today I wanted to talk about some things I discovered in terms of relearning your motion mechanics, your mechanics of your right and left hand, to kind of play like the virtuosos that I grew up listening to. I grew up in the 80s, so to me, incredible guitar was Allan Holdsworth or Yngwie Malmsteen, or the amazing Vinnie Moore back in the 80s was incredible. Tony Macalpine. The list goes on and on. Paul Gilbert, just all these amazing players, incredible players like Van Halen and Randy Rhoads. These guys were all huge. They were heroes of mine, and I spent hours just trying to play their stuff. And in the course of trying to do that, I developed some bad habits that I had to kind of unlearn so I could actually play the things closer to what they were playing and get my hands moving in a way that was musical and not just trying to play fast notes. And along the journey of doing that, I discovered some things that I'd like to share with you all in terms of relearning your motions to play things fluid. And the question I pose is it possible to play like a virtuoso as an adult? If you've been playing a while and you never reached that ability on the guitar to play all the things that you wanted, maybe to play like all the players that you look up to, and you'd spent years trying to do it, and you just seem like you're banging your head against the wall. I thought I would share some tips that might help you, that helped me. So let's get started. So when I grew up in the 80s, initially I started out playing Van Halen and Randy Rhoads and Jimmy Page and Black Sabbath tunes. And Eddie and Randy were like my two guys. They were just legendary. And I spent hours just trying to learn those Van Halen songs and Randy Rhoads songs. And they were totally different players. Their lines, everything about them, their phrasing was totally different. And those were two amazing players to start out playing. Ritchie Blackmore's in there also. And I remember first hearing Yngwie, and when I heard Yngwie, I could kind of do the Eddie and Randy thing decent, but I heard Yngwie with this killer right hand and everything synchronized, and just, it was another world for me. It just blew me away. And I had to do that. I just had to be able to play like that. And initially, whenever I wanted to learn something, I would just fake it. And what I mean by fake it is, I wouldn't just spend a long time building up speed in a slow way. I would just jump in and pretend I could do it already. And there was a lot of benefit to that. I think just, in my mind, I thought I want to do that. I want it to be like that right now. I didn't want to wait till tomorrow. And it worked out for the most part. However, as I started playing and going along in my playing, my journey of really becoming the kind of guitar player I wanted to be, I realized that some of the things I was doing, some of the movements weren't quite exactly right in terms of phrasing, or I didn't have the control of the rhythm and playing music as much as I wanted. So I had to go back and unlearn some of these movements so I could gain more control and play everything more tight and in time and more as a musical phrase. The first thing you want to do is really focus on what you want to do. You want to pick one technique or one movement and master that, and build that foundation with that technique or movement, and then go from there. I think a lot of times we try to do too much, and I'd rather be a master at a few things than kind of do everything just average or below average. So you want to focus on what you want to do. For instance, if you're alternate picking, you want to really get your alternate picking down, I would focus on one string first, really syncing your hands up, get everything moving together, before you try to skip strings. Master that. Then once you master one string and you can play up and down one string really fluid, really, in a lot of ways, it's very easy to switch strings because you're synchronized, and so much of it's just the left and right hand synchronizing. And you want to have that foundation. You'll find a lot of players just have so many moves. It's not like they have hundreds of moves. A lot of them have mastered a few moves, and then they weave in and out of all those moves. It's really quite incredible that you don't have to learn tons and tons of things. You can take a few, technical moves that you have down and weave in and out and stretch them as much as you can. You can create incredible music. And don't get boggled up in trying to play exactly like your favorite player. If Paul Gilbert's using his wrist and it looks cool, but you're not wired that way, you can't find that feeling that he has, that he found. There's another way to do it. There's so many different ways to pick, same with your left hand. You want to find the angle that works for you and go from there, The second thing you want to do is you want to be able to hear what you're going to play in your head first. In other words, you should be able to hear the phrase in your head before you play it, nice and tight and in rhythm. If you can't hear the lick in your head, like tap your foot and just imagine yourself playing it, chances are you're not going to be able to play it on the guitar. So you want to take a lick that you're working on and listen to other players that play the lick amazing, and I actually would just loop little passages for a bunch of different times in a row on a cassette tape and just listen to that over and over before I went to bed to really ingrain that in my head. I would just tap my foot and just try to think of it as a phrase and hear it inside my head. Then when I pick up my guitar, it's almost like I already played it because I could really hear the lick. I think a lot of times we're just moving our hands and we're not really hearing what we're playing. So the key for me was really hearing the licks I wanted to play in my head before I played them. The third key to really relearning something is to feel the rhythms of what you're going to play. 9 times out of 10, if we're playing something and we can't get it, the reason is we're not feeling it as a rhythmic phrase. We're just moving our fingers and hoping for the best. You want to think of everything as a rhythmic phrase, a grouping, a time value, and that will relax you and allow you to move your hands in a movement, a rhythmic movement. That's really the key. This tip is super important. Feeling everything as a phrase, first of all, it's going to make you musical, and that's what it's about. We want to play music. Second of all, you're not going to be in a hurry. You're not just going to be moving your hands fast. You're going to be playing to a value of time, so you can ease into it and relax and just cruise on whatever time value, 16th note, 16th note, triplets, whatever. And just, you're not going to rush it and tense up to try to play as fast as you can. You want to feel that phrase first. So if you're picking something, say, and you're going to play sextuplets or triplets or 16th notes, you want to just maybe practice the groove on one string, just picking the note, first of all, to kind of warm up the phrase, the rhythmic value of the phrase. And then you could do exactly the same thing with your left hand. Just play the phrase on the guitar by moving your fingers in time. And when you start to do that, you're going to realize that we don't have to move our hands as fast as we think. To play 120 or 130 on a metronome, your sextuplets, say 200 beats per minute, whatever, your hands just moving at a certain speed. It's not some incredible warp speed thing that we're doing. It's just moving in a fashion that's not ridiculously fast. Some guys do play ridiculously fast, but for me, I don't need all that technique. I just want to be able to play the stuff that I love listening to and grew up listening to. And for me, if you can master the sextuplets from 110 to 130, or a little bit above, maybe for me, it's about cruising at a tempo, not, grinding it out and playing as fast as I can. If I want to play 130 in a metronome, I want to be able to play those sextuplets, whatever patterns that I favor, as long as I want, without stopping. To me, that's playing, having control of your technique, not just reaching that moment, that speed for a moment, and then having no control of it. That doesn't interest me at all. So the most important thing is to move your fingers and feel everything as a phrase, a rhythmic phrase. The next thing you want to do is you really want to relax your hand and allow your hand to feel those motions. And this is really the key in terms of relearning your technique. And what you're going to do is you're just going to relax your hands and allow that rhythm to come out. So the key is really relaxing that hand and allow it to feel the new movements. And it's going to feel weird at first, and sometimes our brain doesn't really know what we want to do, and it's so used to doing it a certain way, a little variation feels weird. But you have to push through that and allow it to feel weird. Relax your hands. Sometimes I'll distract myself if I'm trying to relearn a movement, where I'm thinking of something else or whatever, and trick my hand into not feeling that old muscle memory. That's really helped me a lot. Like watching TV or going into it from another lick is a great way to do it. If you kind of can play a lick sort of in time, you got control of it, then go from that lick right into the next movement. And you can do this without, like I said, picking all the notes, just by moving your hands in rhythm on the guitar. So that's the next thing. Start to feel the movements, the rhythmic movements we just talked about, but relaxing your hands and allowing it to feel the new movements. That's really important. The next tip is you're going to find it, lose it, and then you have to find it again. when you're relearning muscle memory, you're going to do all sorts of stuff. You're going to have days where or just periods of time within a practice session where you're going to be really frustrated, but you're also going to have times where it's there. And it's really normal when you're relearning something to lose it, go back to the old way, and have to start over. For me personally, I find that if I practice too long doing the one thing, I get lazy and I'm not concentrating, then I just kind of slip back into the old way, and I might not even realize it. I'm just practicing grinding this stuff out wrong. So maybe the initial part of the practice I was playing it correctly, but then the whole rest of the practice I was playing whatever patterns or phrases or whatever slightly off the old way, and you kind of defeat the purpose of actually, what you practiced initially. So I would recommend doing it in very focused, kind of smaller practice sessions a lot. So you don't sit down and practice an hour relearning muscle memory. I would say you could practice your muscle memory initially at the beginning. Just play or whatever else you want to work on. Maybe not technique, maybe songs or improvising. But start your day with that really focused. But you're going to have moments where you find it and have moments where you lose it. And that's really normal. And you just want to reset. So you want to play the lick right. If you lose it, reset, find it again. And then I always try to end my practice session where I'm on a good point. I want to play the lick correctly at least once at a speed that I can play it, using the technique that I use when I play fast, before I put the guitar down. So don't get discouraged. You're going to find it, feel good a while, lose it, but eventually you won't lose it as much, and that window will start to close. And you might slip back into that occasionally, but don't freak out. Doesn't mean you're going to, go back to your old way. And eventually that new way will take over. So that's really important. Just allow yourself to find it. If you lose it, reset. Don't get frustrated by it. The next thing is you want to take the path of least resistance in terms of your technique. If you've been playing a while and you're trying to unlearn things and develop new things, you want to take the things that you can do really well. Like for me, I love outside picking. I love doing a downstroke on the lower string, an upstroke on the higher. And I set a lot of my fast picking lines up like that. That's really comfortable for me. You don't want to set your lines up to a way that's not comfortable because some, famous guitar player that you look up to plays everything like that. But if you're not geared for that, if you're not wired for that, that's not going to work for you. Just remember that player might not be able to play the way you play, but that's okay because there's a lot of different ways to play notes, So you want to pick the way that's easiest for you. So you want to follow that path of least resistance and allow your mechanics just to be what they are. So what you want to do is you want to play faster to find that mechanic, and then once you get control, have that speed down, you want to get control of it, but you want to use the mechanics so you can play fast. So if you're picking from the wrist and you can really play fast with the wrist, that's great, use the wrist. But if you have to use your elbow, if you're doing what feels good, then go from there, and then you can gain the control by kind of allowing your hands to realize what they want to do and not rushing. So for me, what I did was I would just take like a lick, like the Yngwie lick or the Paul Gilbert lick or something like that, and I would just focus on playing it in one position, and not really moving it around, just really focus on that one position. I might use different fingerings, but I really focus on that one position to really find that motion and really master what it felt like. Then, once it became kind of a muscle reflex and kind of an automatic movement, then I would try to move it around. But I wouldn't go nuts initially, but then once I learned the lick down though, I'd squeeze as much as I could out of that lick and play as many variations of it as I could. And I think once you start to feel those motions rhythmically and your fingers start to feel relaxed and really grooving is what I call it, feeling that groove of the notes timing-wise and technique-wise, then it's easy to move around. Then you want to stretch that as many ways as you can, that one movement. Set your lines up to where you're using the motions that are comfortable for you. Don't worry about copying someone else. That is really important. And that really helped me a lot, and that's what I did. I set my lines up for what's comfortable for me and then built that foundation and went from there. Another thing that's really important that if you really want to work on your technique and become a virtuoso later in life as a player, is you want to record everything you do. In fact, this is great no matter what level you are as a player. And you want to listen back to what you've done. A lot of times we can be playing something, man, we're nailing this, and listen back, and you might not be right on the downbeat, or your phrasing might not be totally in sync, even though at the time it kind of felt like it. So we really want to listen to our playing, be very critical. But then when the moment you get it right, when you see that kind of happening, even if it's for a second, it's going to give you the confidence to know I played that correctly, even if it was for a second, but I played it right, and it had the rhythmic value and the phrasing that I wanted it to, and was clean. So recording yourself and really, being critical, you don't want to beat yourself up, but really listen to what you're playing back and make the corrections. Find out which part of the lick is not working right. And 9 times out of 10, it's your fingers aren't exactly even, like if you're trying to get a fast picking thing down. I think the focus is so much on the right hand, but I really think 90% of it is really having that left hand even and switching everything in time. At least for me, the right hand just kind of happened. But the left hand, when I really focused on feeling those rhythms, the right hand just motored right along with it. Could be different for some of you, but for me, that seems to be a lot of it. It's really that left hand and feeling those motions. So that's what I did. I'm going to focus more on this in the future, maybe show you some licks that I actually worked on and had to work up and relearn. But you just want to focus on a lick that you find useful, something that you can kind of make as a basis for your technique, whether it's like the Paul Gilbert lick or just the Yngwie lick on one string is great, or a legato lick maybe that you can kind of set your lines up. So I hope this helped you. I really love talking about this stuff. I give it a lot of thought. And it's really helped my playing over the years immensely. And like I said, I'm going to be covering a lot more of this and maybe break down some licks that I actually had to relearn. So anyway, hope this helps you. Thanks a lot for joining me. And if you like this, please like and subscribe. And to everyone that has liked and subscribed to my channel, thank you so much. And until next time, have fun picking.